The day it began, a Tuesday, in San Francisco, was cloudy, a little foggy, clammy, depressing to many. The day it began in Phoenix, it was 105 degrees. Air conditioners were running full capacity. People were running from malls to their cars to avoid the heat, starting their cars remotely with air conditioning running if they had that capacity, waiting in the car with open windows as the cooling began if they did not have that capacity. The day it began in Miami, Florida, there was a downpour early in the morning from a localized thunderstorm that went out to sea nearly as quickly as the rain stopped falling, leaving a partially cloudy day that was warm, humid, and getting warmer as it went along. In Moscow, Russia, the day it began, there was a beautiful, bright day in progress. But because there was some fear as well, because the press was so preoccupied with the difficulties in the Ukraine that had been going on for years. In Beijing, China, a new moment of crisis was occurring in the economy. Though the government had been increasingly allowing capitalist enterprises, many of them had failed, leaving large numbers of the population without work, hungry, and many even without housing. Those without housing had begun to move into the abandoned cities and buildings that came from the failures. And they were restive, uncontrolled in large measure, despite the monolithic Chinese army. But all those places, and most others on this great Mother Earth, were much more peaceful in the ultimate moments than was Baghdad. For 10 years, the ISIS groups with various names had been warring with the government. For 5 years, the Shia and the Sunni had warred with each other, pretending to be warring about anything but religion. But the root, the actual basis for the war, was their age-old dispute over who should have taken the caliphate on Muhammad's death. And there were those on both sides that wanted to extend the caliphate to the entire world by whatever means could be used for accomplishment of that lofty goal. For more than 5 years, the intensity of the war had grown while the rest of the world watched from afar. And for more than 5 years, a small cabal of Shia had been paying for the acquisition and transport of a weapon they thought would have consequence in the war, from Pakistan to the west, where it ended up in Donetsk. The transaction had been highly secret and was known only to 3 men in the entire world: Abu Khalil al-Gantras, Falik Salim, and Pasha Hashimi were the names of those 3. Even those who transported the weapon, along with Falik, did not know what they were carrying. It came in components that Falik had trained to assemble. When he and the other 2 men who transported the weapon to Donetsk arrived there, he shot both of them in the head, dumped their bodies in a culvert well east of Donetsk, and went on to the city. He assembled the weapon and engaged the very sophisticated timing device that would set it off on a Tuesday afternoon. Hashimi was a colonel in the ISI of the Pakistani army. It was discovered by a subordinate that he was selling weapons to people in other countries. The subordinate wanted a cut of the profits. Hashimi refused the request and made plans to kill the man. But before he could do that, the man turned Hashimi into the ISI. His interrogation was brutally intensive and physical. He was left with no fingers on his right hand. It would have been lopped off by a sword in time anyway, since he was declared a thief. His injuries, inflicted during the interrogation, caused his demise.